Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, welcome to Tuesday. You get to see non-hatted Bentley for once. Uh, yeah. Although my headphones have you can see this. My headphones are like messed with how my hair was styled. But yeah, I had an interview earlier today. Well, technically, in the tech industry, we refer to them an interview loop. So I did 3 interviews back to back to back. So had my headset on, was on basically Zoom meetings, doing those interviews. A lot of fun, actually. Um, tech tech industry interviews are always interesting because it's different. Like every place you go, and some of them feel almost robotic, and others like feel more like a good conversation. And that's what this one felt like. This actually felt like a really good conversation. So hopefully, things pan out. Felt really good from my perspective. I kind of feel the way I did when I walked away from my big interview loop for Amazon at first. And obviously I got the job at Amazon, so hopefully that's the case here. I'm not going to disclose the company yet. Like when I know, I'll tell you guys. I think it's super exciting. I know that a particular person that I interact with regularly is going to lose their mind probably if this all goes through. But yeah, Scotty, you absolutely can advertise the Clash, buddy. Speaking of the Clash, I'll be at Keystone Clash. Speaking nonetheless, I'm doing 3 different things there effectively. So I'm doing 2 talks, one on rainbow fish. I think you guys are gonna like the name of it. I called it Beautiful Idiots. Yeah, we're going there, right? But it's kind of about some lessons in my journey in rainbow fish, going from knowing almost nothing to here where I am now, and kind of taking other people on that journey too to help them know more about rainbows and potentially take care of rainbow fish. And then the second one is about plants. I'm calling that one Finding Balance. Basically, I'm going to do a more focused short version of my longer club talk, kind of talking about the 3 things that I think are most important as far as long-term success in an aquarium and how you work through those 3 things. So those are the talks. I actually, in basically starting like this or next week, depending on how things go, because I have a couple other interviews this week too. Depending on how things go, I'll be starting putting together like the final presentation for those chats already. And then the last thing I'm going to be in a panel talk with actual fish people who really know what they're talking about and not just like this dum-dum on the internet. But that'll be with the one, the only Kelly Foreman, right? Like legit biologist, real scientist, not just this dum-dum. And Dan of Dan's Fish. We're going to talk about, I think, rainbows too there, but that might be totally freeform because it's a panel chat, so it's kind of open to questions, and who knows like how that will evolve and turn into things. So yeah, and of course, I'll film everything that is my talks and make them completely available for those who can't make it. Like, African Orchid Dude is like, I can't make it. I'm in SoCal. It's too far away. Totally understand that. Just like there's an event in California that I kind of would like to go to, but just with how things are right now and the traveling I'm doing later in the year, it's just totally out of the budget, right? I'm even potentially not going to Fishtoberfest, despite the fact that that's a drive for me and it's not very far in the grand scheme of things. But that's going to depend on finding a new job and getting back into the cycle of work. Like, hopefully it's far enough away, right? Because it's tail end of September now. They moved it a little bit. Makes it way harder because it's like the week after Clash. So basically, I would have to take almost that entire period of time from Clash through Fishtoberfest off. Because otherwise, like, it's come home, work a couple days, basically not talk to my wife, and go do another fish thing, which my wife would, like, hate. Just because, It's gonna be rough. But also just like when you're doing a bunch of travel and stuff like that, it takes a toll on you whether you think it should or not. And yeah, so we'll see. It kind of depends. If I know relatively soon um, how the job hunt is going to go, then that might change, and I might be going to Fishtoberfest as well. At a minimum, I might go to Fishtoberfest just to visit, but not necessarily like talk, because that's what the organizers are asking of me, is to like come down and do a talk, and might be tough. We'll see. It's so dependent now. I'm in this world where it's like it's totally dependent on my job. So we'll see how that pans out. I am, however, going to and this is going to be really freeform. It's not like a super important topic based stream this day. I've spent a lot of time interview prepping, so my like fish topic is just not up here. I'll be straight with you. But also, it's nice weather. We can all enjoy this together. I'm skipping a club meeting on macroalgae. It's like a macroalgae aquascaping demonstration was supposed to happen, which kind of is interesting to me. But yeah, you guys are here, so we'll do that instead. Plus, just in general, after work and prep today, as far as doing the stress of interviews, I'm sure any of you who've walked through an interview, even within the last like 5 years, you're probably like, dude, I know that stress. I don't want to. So yeah. But Portland Aquarium Society is having their auction. I'm going down for that. I'm mostly just going down to hang out. I'm not a member, so I'm pretty confident I can't sell things there. But yeah, I'm just gonna go and have fun instead. And hang out with some of my Portland friends. So if you're close to Portland and you want to come say hi, come to the Greater Portland Aquarium Society's auction. It's all plants and fish. It's all live stuff. So you're not going to have like tanks or fish food and all that. So if you're looking to like stock a tank, or maybe you need some extra plants, wanted a new fish, might be an awesome opportunity. Yeah. YouTube, stop trying to make me put ads in my live stream. Go away. I can't. Every time it prompts me, it's like, now would be a really good time to do an ad, guy. It's like, no, go away. Just leave me alone. But yeah. Anyway, let's see. What else we got? So yeah, I'll be down in Portland. So if you want to come hang out, come hang out. Everything should be if you just look up in Google Greater Portland Aquarium Society, all the information is right there on their homepage. Super easy to find. Easy peasy on just a quick Google check. Yeah. Nabokov fan is mentioning this in chat, so I'm assuming that almost everybody here watched the video that I put out last Saturday. Thank you. Just everybody has been so delightful and wonderful in the comments. A lot of you shared your own stories about whether it's your own personal struggle with types of chronic pain, whether it's back issues, some people have had friends or family that have the actual same condition that my wife deals with. I just realized I'm not wearing my ring. I put gel in my hair this morning, which means I left it on the stupid kitchen, or not kitchen, but bathroom counter. It's weird how you don't think about those things for a while, and then you're like, one little thing, and you're like, oh, something's really wrong with my finger. About wearing my ring like a dummy. Lord. Do you see how scatterbrained I am? This is what happens post interviews. My brain is just out the window. It's probably a good thing that when I did my giant like Amazon interview, it wasn't the same day I needed to stream. Because that I would have been just gone. But anyway, just a massive thank you to you folks. Like everybody who shared their stories. I've read, both my wife and I have read a ton of comments. So thank you guys. I really appreciate it. It's one of those things where we're finally in the right mental place, and I hope that makes sense, to where we're a little more open to talking about it as broadly as YouTube is going to be. But yeah, let me let me just certainly say thank you. Yeah, I was like, the local Austin saying about hair products and that. Uh, but yeah, I took my ring off because gel. I don't want to get it on my ring and have to try and clean that off. So I gelled my hair, I washed my hands. I'm like, cool. I got 15 minutes before my interview starts. I'm gonna go get myself a water, get sat down, make sure I've got all the things that I want on my computer open because I'm one of those people like when I'm being interviewed, I take notes. So if you want to hear like true crazy, it's also because I always come into interviews. It's a piece of advice for anybody, especially for some of you younger folks that might be watching. If you're ever looking at breaking into the tech industry, ahead of time, I highly suggest find questions that you have and write them down so that you ask each interview and take notes. Because it's one of those things that like if you better understand certain things about your prospective place of employment from the perspective of people already working there, it's just one of those things that will help you in the long run. Especially like I could go into like deeper talks. Maybe some point I'll do something about this, like a video on like crazy career advice from Bentley. But I told you, scatterbrain tonight. But yeah, I've like literally set up my thing for taking notes and all this and that. It's a process, man. So nonetheless, I left it like an idiot on the bathroom counter. So I'm gonna go get it after we're done. So I feel weird without it. Let's see. What else I got? Last couple of things. Did someone say Keystone Clash? I said Keystone Clash because I'm gonna be there. So it'll be my first time speaking at a convention that or club that isn't on the West Coast, so that should be fun. Also, a little tippy tip. Redfish Bluefish, my friend Jason, where I sell the Blue Hawaiian Moscow Guppies, and more accurately, it's like I sell them to him, and then he sells them through his website. If you've been looking for Blue Hawaiian Moscows, he's got them in stock. They've made it through their quarantine period. We always, even though we know each other, we know the level of care we take. He still always does a quarantine period, just like Dance Fish would do. It's a matter of precaution and safety to make sure that everything is tip-top when they go for shipping, minimize stress on the fish. So, if you've been looking for Blue Hawaiian Moscow Guppies, they're available at redfishbluefish.shop. I'm pretty confident, I'll have to make sure, but I'm pretty confident you can still use code STAYAWESOME, all one word, all capital letters, to get 10% off your fish purchase. I'm pretty confident that is right there. Yeah. I'm pretty confident that's still sitting there. I don't recall us having a conversation saying, hey, we're going to expire this, but if it does, it makes sense. It was when we first established things, and I don't know if it's still there, but if it is, you can save 10% off your fish, which, I think that saves you like $4 a pair before stuff, so that's pretty good. At least like kind of ends up covering effectively your tax. How do I get 100% off? You kind of got to live in Washington for that. I have given away fish locally several times. And to be clear, like Redfish Bluefish has a ton of really awesome stuff. If you're an Apisto fan, he's like the Apisto guy. He brings in tons of crazy, cool, and rare Apistogramma, dwarf cichlids in general are kind of his jam, but especially Apistos. But yeah, let's see. One other thing I saw in chat before we go into like full Q&A. At this point, guys, if you have questions at Bentley Pasco, makes it super easy for me to see them. We'll kind of just this will be very free form, open conversation. This is going to be a Bentley's brain is all over the place day. But yeah. There was a question from Lee about, do I drink bourbon? Yes. And what do I like? A lot. Which is to say, I like a lot of stuff. I tend to be a bigger fan of wheated bourbons. Not exclusively those. Like, there's tons of stuff that I really like. I have kind of a dumb collection in the grand scheme of things because I drink so little. I never do more than like basically a 1.5 ounce pour a night, uh, which is actually like less than the Surgeon General's thing of like, hey, this is what you should be doing as a daily if you're a daily drinker. And it's basically I sip them. So like that small amount I will have in a glass, and it takes me easily 2 hours to go through that tiny amount. So I'm one of those people. I just kind of sip, I nurse on it, I enjoy it. My favorites that I have had so far that I own, because I haven't had any of like the crazy expensive stuff. Um, but I love one thing that I got myself as my like celebration bottle. So my more expensive stuff. I got a bottle of E.H. Taylor Barrel Proof, which in Washington that is atrociously expensive. You know, it really shouldn't be more than like 150 to 200 a bottle. But in Washington, it like when you find it, it's like 800. It's unreal what Washington charges for like some of the harder to find bourbon stuff because there's no price controls in Washington State. But I was very lucky. I found a store that's actually out near Jason in Whidbey Island. And, I was able to get a bottle at a much more reasonable price. And it was kind of, like I said, my celebration. So I didn't open it until I hit my 1 year anniversary at Amazon. I had my one pour out of it so far, and it's one of the most delicious bourbons I've ever had. When I was in Kentucky, I visited Willett, Michter's, Old Forester, Angel's Envy. I know I'm missing one. Oh, the Batson Bourbon Company, which is a pretty cool little place. And I tried a few other things too while I was there. I love a lot of the Michter stuff. That's really, really good. Willett has a ton of stuff that is a little overpriced, but it's really good. But yeah, I have a pretty broad spectrum of stuff. About the only thing that I'm not as huge a fan on is some of the like finished bourbons, if they're done in like wine type casks. So like I've had one that was a sherry finished, and it's like falsely sweet. It's not the type of sweet you expect out of bourbon. Oh, Woodford Reserve Double Oak. I love that stuff. I absolutely love that stuff. You can get it from Costco at like a screaming price. I love that stuff. Or like Old Forester, 1910 is a good comparison if you're a bourbon fan. Just open port finish bourbon from Cedar Ridge. Hey, some port might be interesting. I haven't tried a port finish yet. I don't think so. I might have had that at Angel's Envy, and I just don't remember it. But I've had sherry finished. It was just too sweet. Kind of got me a little off. But maybe it'll mellow some now that the bottle's opened. We'll see. Yeah, tons of stuff. Tons of stuff. I would love to try Pappy 15. That stuff's crazy expensive. So if I ever get a chance to come in Chicago, Lee, I'm talking to you. See, this is how random it is on a day where I have no topic. We're just out the window. You can basically ask whatever you want, and I will answer whatever I'm comfortable with, which is pretty much anything, because I'm a really open dude. I almost don't care about anything. Nabokov, a fan. I watched your video on leopard plecos this morning. Someone else I know just lost their colony. What do you feel now about the advice you gave them? What has changed? So you're talking about like when I lost my zebra plecos and somebody had that problem with leopard frog plecos? I just want to make sure I'm reading this correctly, because I've never owned leopard frogs or leopard plecos. I've had the L333s, and I've got the Wabbenmoosters. I've had just like super red bristlenose, a standard kind of albino bristlenose that was an adoptee, and then brain out. It's the zebras, and then I've had the zebras, and I would say like with plecos especially, because they can be such a mess. just be on top of your water changes. Dude, if you're trying to breed or keep multiple plecos in a singular tank, do not follow the like no water change advice, just because plecos make a big mess. Even a small number of them are very messy fish. So just take your time, do your water changes, and be patient. Don't try to force them to breed. Don't Even if you get advice from somebody who's bred them many, many times, which is what I had, just do what you do normally. Keep their health up, always pay attention to them. They will do their thing when they're ready to. And you might find there's some weird, crazy things that certain fish do. So an example, those 226, the Iquitos tiger plecos that my friend Alyssa is taking care of for me. Right, we showed them a little bit in the tour of her place, which if you haven't checked that out, check it out. She's got a very functional but active breeding pleco fish room. She's really good at what she does. It's just one of those things where it's like they're not taking to like ceramic caves, so we're gonna try wood caves. But give them good quality food. Plecos eat a ton. They're little piggies, so just feed them. Keep them in good, clean water. Give them water changes. Service your filters, all those things, and you'll be fine. Patience is your friend, because eventually they're going to reward you, and you're going to get them all. They're going to be happy. They're going to enjoy what you're doing, and you'll start getting little baby plecos, and that's just fantastic, right? Baby plecos are the best. Soundwave, either sciencey or a very cool Decepticon. How old are you? How old do you think I am? I was born in 1982, which means I am 40. 40. Not quite old as dirt, but I look it. I have been this gray since I was 19. I started going gray when I was 12. Like visibly gray, not just like one or two little hairs. I'm talking like the salt and pepper look through here came in when I was hitting puberty. I got gray hair before this lovely baritone in my voice had even started to settle in. I still had high-pitched young lad voice, but was getting gray hair. Think about that for a second. That makes you wonder a lot of things about your youth when all the rest of your friends are fine. Everybody's got cracky voices and all that weird stuff going on, but you're the one going gray. But I had a friend in high school. He was 16, and like he'd already like balded back to here, and had this big full beard. I was super jealous of it. I can't even grow a beard properly through here. Right? I can only really grow this goatee in. And that dude, you would have thought he was like 35, 40. Because he walked around in just like flip-flops, ratty jeans. He loved wearing like he was into like older rock bands, more classic rock. So he's wearing like classic rock shirts and stuff. He looked like a much older guy than he actually was. And it was funny, the two of us, right? Because you got the guy who's like mostly gray and the guy who's bald when we're both in high school. Terrible. And I may or may not have used that to my advantage when I was younger, before I learned to just enjoy the simple things in life, as opposed to like do the dumb things that kids do. Benjamin Peters, Newbie Question. My female crib lost all her color today and began trying to hide from the male. She ate just fine. Should I be worried? I mean, have they had any? I guess the first question I have is, have they had any fry at all? If they haven't, the biggest thing I would look for is, are they bickering with each other? Because you might need to get some kind of deterrent. If it's just them in a tank, get yourself. Why is my brain not remembering the freaking term for this? Fish to distract them. Oh my lord, brain. This is how bad I am. But like, get something fast, right? Because cribs cribs usually aren't going to like get super aggressive, but they'll kind of like hold territory. And if you can give them something else to focus on and not each other, they definitely do not fight with each other as much. Dither fish. Thank you, Stillwater. Good. How do I not know that? How do I not know what a dither fish is? All right, everybody's correcting me. Thank you. See, this is why I say I don't understand why clubs want me to talk, because I'm just a dum-dum on the internet. You guys know way more than me. I can't even remember dither fish. Oh, Lord. Anyway. I have to laugh at myself because these are the moments you have to enjoy the most. When your brain just goes out the window, and one of the most common things for us Aquarius to remember, and you're just like, I don't know. I know what I'm trying to say, but I don't know the actual word. Because I'm a moron. It's these humbling moments that remind you you were definitely not an expert. You were just a passionate hobbyist. And far from a scientist. Oh, Lord. Okay. But yeah. You might look at some dither fish. You could... Congo Tetras is a great example that Aquatic Eyes is bringing up. You could look at things. I kept just scissortail rasboras with mine because they get a little bit bigger bodied, but they're pretty peaceful. Anything that's got some good speed. And also I would say, what's the size of the tank you're keeping him in? So there's a couple of questions that I would ask, and I would just think about those things to myself and think about like, okay, well, maybe they're in too small a tank. Maybe they're fighting with each other. Maybe I don't have enough hides. That might be something to do. If you've got a like one of the coconut husk caves or something like that for her to like hold her territory, because females are going to hold that a lot better. That might give her a little bit more safety and feel like she's okay, and maybe you'll get her back to happy and healthy. But as long as she's eating, that's a good thing. You might potentially, like if you're just trying to breed them, you might try turning the lights off for a couple days. Just give them a couple days with just ambient light. Let it relax a little bit. That might help. But I would assess those other things first, and then we'll see where we're going from there. Ooh. But not had any fry, community tank, they have hiding places. Okay. Yeah. That's interesting. You might potentially try just dimming the light. But as long as she's eating fine and she's got places to refuge herself, I wouldn't be too stressed. I would just be watching her every time I'm feeding her. And the other thing you might try is if you've got some frozen food or something like that, try giving that slightly higher quality food. Like if you're mostly flake, like I'm a mostly flake guy, but I do feed frozen at least once a week to all my fish. Or if you're doing live baby brine, even better, right? Give them some of that higher quality food a couple days and dim those lights down a touch and just see if she kind of responds to that, gets back into color. Maybe she's just having a day of stress or something. They picked at each other a touch or something like that, and she's just kind of going, I'm in chill mode. Let's relax a little bit over here. I'm going to go hide in my corner and you stop being a jerk, whatever it may be. Usually, though, with cribs, it's the females that beat the F out of the males. I've watched when I used to have my pair, babies got to a certain size and daddy needed to stay on the other side of the tank, or mom was giving him a thorough explanation as to why he was wrong. Even with dither fish in the tank. But yeah, sometimes it happens. Fish do fish things, especially cichlids. I think I missed something up here, so I'm gonna scroll up a touch. Forgive me, chat. Bourbon is meant for friends, not a shelf. Some of it's meant for a shelf, so that we can just slowly and carefully enjoy it. But yeah, Laura Bush does. I don't know how you guys can drink liquor. I think I might be allergic. It smells like poison to me. I come from a strong family of alcoholics. No, I kind of do, but that's why I always drink in super moderation. But everybody's different, right? Like I'm not really a big fan of wine, and I'm in Washington where like wine is the thing. Out here, there's like 8 million great wineries, and there's all sorts of stuff that grows fantastically out here, or like microbrews and beer and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not big on a lot of it. It's about finding a thing, because like for you, a great example also. I'm from the Northwest, where Starbucks is from. There's like a ton of famous coffee that comes from up here. I can't drink coffee. I love the way coffee smells when it's brewing, but it doesn't taste like it smells. It tastes blah. That aftertaste that most coffee has, it is similar to me, where it is like the most acrid thing, and it is one of those things where I'm going, even in some of the drinks that are basically like 95% sugar, 5% coffee, I still taste it and I can't stand it. So, everybody has their thing. Some people go crazy on their coffee. Some of us like our fancy booze. Some people are like my cousin Henry, where they're just like, a bottle of straight up Jack Daniels is just fine. I don't need anything fancy. Give it to me cheap. It's all, just find the things you enjoy and enjoy them in moderation, right? For a lot of us, it's fish. All of us here, we're all fish hounds. We're crazy people who keep tanks, glass boxes full of water in our homes with little bitty fish in them. And whether we struggle with it or not, that's our passion. And we spend money that most people would think is unfathomable for those little bitty jewels floating around in the water. But to us, that's our thing, right? So we all enjoy our thing. Some of us in less moderation than others, all of us with like multiple tank syndrome, who are like, how can I fit one more tank in that corner over there? Or can I shuffle these around and get a bigger one right here? Whatever that crazy stuff may be. It's all about finding the things you love. It doesn't have to be the one thing because your friends are into it. Like, definitely not me. Tons of my friends are big coffee hounds, and I'm like, that's cool. I guess I got water? Or a soda? Oh, every time I like turn my head a little bit and I see like the dent in my hair from my headphones, I'm like, oh god, it's like some really terrible hairstyle out of the 80s or something. All right, we'll catch him on questions. Catch up. There's the chat jump. That's what I've been looking for. Oh, I got a couple good ones I see, but I want to make sure I'm not missing anything. Cool. Caitlin DeRozier. Best plant to float for fry cover. That's a really good question. I personally like floating water wisteria or water sprite, because it has this, once it's happy, it has this huge root system, and it allows tons of places for fry to hide. You can do the same thing with water lettuce, because water lettuce builds a really robust root system. You can even kind of do it with something like the red root floaters, but they're a much shallower root system, but they will get nice and bushy. Things like Salvinia doesn't really do that very well. One of my favorite floating plants actually doesn't build a lot of cover, which is the Asian watergrass, which is a super, super cool looking plant, but it's not really that great for fry. And if realistically, you might need, depending on the fish, you might want your fry cover down low as opposed to up high. So my example would be with my guppies, the adults sit high most of the time. So I put all my cover down low because the fry stay low and hide from the adults until they hit a certain size. Because in general, guppies, even in the wild, they're very top water swimmers. So it really depends. Like in the case of rainbow fish, right, which the babies sit in like the top inch of water for the first easily like month and a half of their life, then that's where I would start looking at that stuff. I think one of the easiest, just because you can make a million, billion, jillion of them, is dwarf water lettuce. But personally, as far as like the root structure and things it gives me, I'm a water wisteria or water sprite kind of guy. Oh wow. Jeez. Kyle, I'm going to do my best on this one. Kosaric? Hope that's right. I'm bad at pronouncing names, just in general. I'm terrible at it. But thank you for the super chat. I can't thank you enough for sharing some of your personal info in your last video. Your description of your wife's pain was eerily familiar to my own experience and may have solved a mystery for me that could change my life. Kyle, if you're seriously dealing with something like a nerve pain, I will tell you this: there are tons of fantastic specialists out there. Whether you go to something like a pain specialist, which was one of the best experiences we had was with a pain specialist, and in the near future, we're actually going to the basically like boss of the pain specialist we used to see until he moved to a different area, so we could no longer go see him. So going to the person that used to work with him is giving us a lot of hope and outlook as far as just finding potentially some different things. Or two, neurologists are all wonderful and mean well. There's tons of medications that work for nerve pain. My wife is an extremely rare case where basically like I think we went through like 13 or 14 different like frontline medications that are normally used, and then another 5 or 6 that are kind of more almost experimental. They're not truly experimental, but more like they're niche case uses, and they do them in like specific low doses because they normally treat something else, but they found in certain low doses can affect conditions like neuralgia. But there's so many things to try. Never ever give up. There was a person in the comments who had mentioned that their mother, who had suffered from a form of neuralgia for 35 years, had recently gone to a newer procedure and now no longer has pain. And it seems crazy to think like 35 years, but the science is always evolving. Medicine in general is always evolving. There's a constant change in how we do almost every part of the crazy like machine monster that the human body is. So never give up hope, Kyle, and hopefully you have a little bit better luck. You find something that will actually help you, because mitigating, making it easier to cope, especially for your mental health. The mental health is so critical there. Having a good support network, whether that's professional help through counselor, psychologist, etc., which we've even done too, is important. Like absolutely. I just wish you the best, and thank you. Like you're so generous, and you totally don't need to be. But thank you. I hope, please, if you have a chance, keep in touch, because if you do happen to find something that helps, I would just love to be able to hear that story. Anytime somebody finds a win with a condition that I'm kind of close to, it feels good knowing somebody got help. Head peppling, it's a lifestyle. Absolutely, fish is totally a lifestyle. Okay, Bob Purcell. We'll go to the next question. Oh, Lord. Bob Purcell. First, I'm going to answer the second thing. What is the equivalent of a dither fish for a corgi? Somebody sent me a video on Instagram, I think it was, where they got a remote control truck in a fenced area and just had the corgi chase this fairly fast remote control truck around for a while, and then it cuts. It's like part 1, and it had like a Metallica's "Give Me Fuel, Give Me Fire" in the background, which is just fuel. Bentley, come on, you know this song. Anyway, which was great. You're just watching this corgi rip all over the place chasing this thing, and then it goes phase 2, and it just shows the corgi like sprawled out sleeping. Oh man, it was so great. It was so great. But if you have room, I mean, the truest dither fish for a corgi is sheep, right? They're sheep herders. That's what gives them all that energy. Is they're freaking sheepdogs. They're out there to herd all day long. And my corgi does that anytime I walk anywhere, in my ankles. It's just right there in my ankles. And I always get worried that like taking a step, I'm gonna move my foot backward and kick him in the face. But he's just right there. Sure as can be. Oh, man. And the second one. What is a good low foreground plant in a 40-gallon breeder using the American barbecue method of CO2, low and slow? Patented by me. Totally not, but just the way I like to think about it. Bonus points for a crypt. FYI, my Jacobson Eye Pink will likely be moving toward mid or back. Okay. I've had some people where they get it taller with the Jacobson Eye Pink. I've been lucky in that I've been able to keep mine really short, where typically the average leaf is only about this tall. And for me, that's considered a foreground plant because I'm normally doing rainbows. So I don't mind something a little taller and grassier, but if you want something super short, the loud motorcycle out the window. Hopefully you guys don't hear that, but it's like crazy loud in my ears. Um, I would look at something like, what's the scientific name? It's Japan clover is the common name for it. But that would be one that I would look at. Just because it's really easy as a carpeting plant. It looks really nice. I think it's significantly easier to do than especially dwarf baby tears, but like Monte Carlo. Maybe I'm just biased because I live in an area where calcium's not prevalent in water, and Monte Carlo is like, give me all the calcium. Um, Other options you could look at, there's a lot of the like Marcilias, so like Marsilia hirsuta or Crenata, um, or not Crenata. Crenata is like a more of a stem plant, but there's some of those. Glossostigma is really, really good. And then a personal favorite of mine, just because it's super easy, is like dwarf or pygmy chainsword, which is Halanthium tenellum. It used to be an Echinodorus, so some people still call it that, but tenellum is what you want to look for in the scientific name. You know, usually it's getting about yay tall, similar to how my Jacobson eye pinks like to stay, and will give you a good carpet relatively fast. You'd think I've been drinking with my inability to speak English this evening. But it really has just been a ton of water. Trying to think of anything else that would be good. I mean, there's a few kind of crazier things you could do, but that's kind of where I would lean, especially if you're going low CO2. If you're going higher CO2, that's where you start looking at like dwarf baby tears. But you want to keep it low. The other thing you could look at that will grow a little bit taller, kind of like Jacobson eye pink and how you're dealing with Jacobson eye, but something like Crypt lucens or lutea. In my experience, lucens stays shorter than lutea, but they all are what I consider more foregroundy because they don't really get super tall, unless you're trying to build like really high substrate and then you want a shorter plant to be your tall background plant. But yeah, that's what I did in Fallen Forest, right? Is I have this big hill and I have crypts in the background to be some of my taller plants by putting them on the top of this like big hill of substrate. Those are some options. I don't know. Let me know what you think. Let's see here. I'm behind on chat as usual. Make sure I haven't missed something good. Okay, here we go. Blake Howden, can I do root tabs for both Hygrophila corymbosa and Crypt lutea, or do I need to use liquid ferts as well? So for the crypts, the root tabs will do fantastic. Hygrophila corymbosa is, we kind of treat it like a stem. However, because it's one of, especially the compact varieties, definitely feed a little heavier on their roots than some of the other taller, more aggressive growing stems. So things like your Pogastemons and your Rotalas and stuff like that. I think you would be okay using just root tabs, but you might need a touch of liquid fertilizer. The crypts are going to like love having all that nutrition at their roots, and the corymbosa will do okay, but you might notice that like maybe they're not absolutely perfect. So you might need a little bit of liquid fertilizer here and there, but you might not have to go like crazy and do it all the time. So I would give it a shot. Like I think you've got a reasonable shot of them looking really good and being healthy, just because of how corymbosa in general grows in. It feeds a little bit more from the roots than some of the other more aggressive height style stem plants. So you might be okay just with root tabs, to be honest. Uh-oh, I missed something. Something about fish that endlessly swim and the way they look. What are you angry about, Kelly? Oh man. Rocky and Miles, I bought 6 Ember Tetras from a local fish store, 30-minute drive, 15-minute float in the tank. They all died except one when I opened the bag. They were still in the bag but seemed to pass when the bag opened. Why? Really? The only thing I can think of in that case is if, I mean, it's too short a drive to be a realistic buildup of ammonia, and it would dilute that really quickly going into, unless they like had burned their gills inside the bag, which I really doubt. Right? It's such a short period of time. My only thought is that you would have needed to float them longer, or they weren't given sufficient oxygen in the bag. But I mean, I figure a local fish store would do that correctly. That's really strange. I mean, Ember Tetras can be really fragile at times. I guess the big question would be like, what was the temperature in your tank versus what temperature did the bag get to by the time you got it home? Because maybe there is some sort of shock from temperature that occurs. One way or the other, like maybe your tank was cooler than the water they're used to, and being immersed in that caused a shock. I mean, it shouldn't. I would think that you're getting Ember Tetras, you're probably at a sufficient temperature. But man, that's weird. That's really weird. I'm also not like the most experienced with Tetras in general, because as soon as I caught like the rainbow fish bug, I was like, I don't want to get these fish that are too tiny. I'm a little terrified that they will never get to eat, because rainbows are big piggies, and those big bodies scare those little fish. And they'll just be like, let's not for a little while. Let's just keep not. I'm starving, but let's not. While the rainbows are like, we will eat everything, and fly around the tank at like 9 million miles a second, because they're stupidly fast little buggers. Yeah, that's quite a conundrum. I'd be really curious. I mean, I would hope that you could talk to the local fish store and maybe get some kind of deal or something worked out to where they give you a credit or something, but that's rough. It's really rough. Jeff Koski said, unfortunately, had a 40-gallon breeder leak on him recently. All my fish from the 40-gallon are now in the 60-gallon. Nice. Stocking shrimp, SAEs, CPDs, Bolivian rams, chili rasboras, neon tetras, red neon blue eye rainbows, red neon rasboras, and Julii Cory cats. That is a very diverse tank. Lots of really cool things, right? Like, I would be very curious how the CPDs and Bolivian rams get along, because Bolivians are a little more chill than like blue German rams, right? The German rams can be a little more ornery, but yeah, it's very diverse. I'm sure it's fun to watch because there's just so much different behavior and color flying all over the place in that tank, right? It's just, you got the Corys down low, you got the Rams playing the Ram games where they'll kind of poke in and out of wherever they're holding court, or if they're like just happy, they'll sit like right in the middle of the water, like, I am the boss of this tank. Then you got lots of like rasboras and little bitty tetras and fast rainbows are going to take your top water. Sounds fun to watch, I won't lie. But yeah, I'm just glad everybody got moved safe. Sucks that your tank freaking leaked. man. Oh, there was a question earlier I missed. I'm remembering this now because I got like deep into one. As it was a question about, I think, apistos or dwarf cichlids, like rams at lower temperatures, which is to say in more like the mid 70s instead of the higher, like getting into those 80s. I would say this. Definitely not with German blue rams. I've never seen success stories of German blue rams under like 80 degrees. I've even kept them for a period of time, and I started seeing some health issues in the ones that I had adopted from somebody when I was keeping a tank at 80. So I moved them to a friend who had more experience and kept them hotter naturally, and they recovered, thankfully. And I just kind of admitted, because I don't want to run rainbows that hot personally. So I was just kind of like, okay, I need to stay away from these. There are some species that like cooler water. So like you can look at things like Crebensis, whether it's the Pelvicochromis tenniatus or the Pelvicochromis pulcher, right? The pulcher is the common crib, the one that we know the most, but there's the tenniatus. There's tons of catch locations and all sorts of different colorations in those. They do like cooler water, in the sense of like more that 74, 76 range, right? So still tropical and still warm, but not like in the low 80s and like potentially even like 86. I've seen some people, or where they like keeping their rams at. Bolivian rams do better too in that cooler water. They don't need to be as hot. They can be down, I think, all the way to like 70 or 72. I mean, they can go quite a bit cooler. I wouldn't personally select that. I'd be like 74 is about my low range personally, but that's just I like keeping tropical fish at like the 74 to 76 range. I think that's just optimal for, at least for a lot of the stuff that I like to keep. We'll put it that way. And I know some of the apistos can do well. It just depends. Basically, you want to find out like where they come from. Because if they're coming like closer to the equator, you really want them hot. But if you start getting them, further away from the equator, they're going to deal with more cooler temperatures or more seasonal weather. And you're going to be able to mimic those and be able to keep them more successfully at different temperatures than that like 82, 83 kind of stuff that you see with like the German blue ram specifically. So that would be my advice there on that question about like temp and dwarf cichlids that I saw earlier. And I apologize for the massive delay in answering that, because I saw it and I was like, that's a great question. Let me finish answering this one. And then immediately out of my brain because it's so scattered. Laura Bustos, I hear that. I've been on at least 50 meds trying to find the stuff that works. A lot of people ask too about like medical cannabis, which my wife does use. And I will say this, like, I've known a number of people before it was legal in Washington state, and well after, thankfully, who have used cannabis as a source of pain control. So most of the people that I know have had like severe back issues, whether it's, degenerative disc disease or things like that. And rather than going to prescription narcotics like Oxycontin and those kind of things that are scarily addictive, they've used cannabis products. And I would much rather see somebody use cannabis than some of those, just because some of those prescription narcotics are just so scary. And this comes from the fact of me talking to at length with my mother, who's a pharmacist, has been in the pharmacy industry for years now, about like better understanding how those medications affect your body, and just what they do. And it's just like, kind of think that whole like marijuana thing ain't so scary when you talk about like the honestly like epidemic of painkillers that has happened, especially in the United States. And some of these medication companies have made billions of dollars, basically turning people into addicts and or killing them. And it's terrifying, right? It's terrifying. There's so many things that we deal with in the world today, modern medicine, where we're striving to do things better, but especially in for-profit systems, it's very dangerous. Whereas more natural products, to some extent, I'm not talking about like, okay, go see the guy who's going to feed you an eye of newt and that the skin of whatever thing. Like, I'm not talking that level of homeopathy. I can't say I really believe in that, but I do say if it works for you, great. And in her case, it helps take some of the edge off. But there are a lot of people who they don't want to do that kind of stuff, right? They look at it as a negative. There's been some interesting science recently with like psilocybin, which is the primary chemical in mushrooms that are used as drugs, right? But there's been some really interesting like scientific research around that too, which is kind of interesting to watch from a perspective of like all these things that have been demonized that really do have massive potential in their medical benefit, but certain industries are making so much money that they want to demonize those things instead of doing the right thing, which is finding better things to actually help people, as opposed to turning people into a profit source. Can you tell that I don't like the drug industry at all? It drives me crazy. New local Austin. I am a nurse. That is what I tell anyone who has chronic illness. Don't burn out on the process. Dude, I will tell you, the biggest thing for us has been constantly caring and putting mental health first. I'm very fortunate in that I'm a really rock solid human being when it comes to my mental health. I look at so many things at the positive. I look at people for what the best in them can be. I don't usually look at situations negatively, with a few exceptions, but in general, I'm a pretty like silver lining kind of guy. You can give me the worst day and I'll find the good in it, right? I'll find something good in it. That's just the way I've been for a very, very long time in my life. But, you know, when I'm not the one experiencing those things. So the biggest thing has been the support, the care. When my wife needs some TLC, she gets some TLC, right? Anything to make sure that I am keeping her mental health in the best place I possibly can has been one of the biggest things for us finding her a level of ability to cope with the pain and giving her reasons to find happiness in life. Because for a while there was this fear early on, and I didn't want to go too deep because I knew I was already talking too much, but it's like there's this fear early on that's like, well, I can't work anymore, so I don't have purpose. So what is my life now? Is it just wallow in pain all day and feel like a burden to this one person I care a lot about, which is, you know, we've had some kind of scary conversations in that regard. But yeah, dude, it's just mental health is so important when you're dealing with chronic pain. And I respect anyone in the medical profession, especially nurses, because honestly, you guys have it kind of rough. You see so much and deal with so much, and you're the true front line. Like doctors are there, but you're there first, right? You're there usually before the doctor even enters the door, and you're very frequently the biggest point of contact. A patient's going to spend more time with a nurse half the time than they are with a doctor. And I just respect people who go into that profession, who have that heart to want to care for people for a living. I have the utmost respect for people that do that. So, New Local Awesome, thank you. Thank you for being you. I appreciate it. Kyle, I didn't make too much of your time on stream. I just want to say, really, really want to say thank you. Hey, it's not a problem. I hadn't ever heard of occipital neuralgia, but a nearly exact same description. Yeah, I mean, totally. That's the first thing I would do is I'd talk to your primary care provider and just go, hey, I heard about this condition. Should I go see a neurologist? Start with a neurologist, and then from there, they'll help you. They're really good at figuring these things out. They might not find the answer, but they can at least get you to a point where you're on the right path, and that's the important part. Just always know that every action you take is just putting you on the right path. That's the important part. Whether it's your mental health, trying to find a medication that helps, maybe consulting surgeons, things like that. Like, it's all about putting yourself on the right path to finding that point in your life where you're okay. And okay doesn't necessarily mean the pain goes away. You know, in the case of my wife, that's what that is. But for it's finding that way to find purpose, find happiness, and be able to live your life. Like, that's the important part. We knew this one was going hog wild, folks. We're just going straight into the crazy tank today. Big Dean, I would ask a question, but you have skipped over me 3 times. I'm so sorry. This shows you how bad I am. I'm gonna hunt and find your question. I'm gonna find it because I want to answer it. Do. Okay, so you had 328, 30 psi, 3 BP. Oh wait, hold on. Ah, there it is. Oh no, that's an add-on. So, also best fish to keep with 2 trio of guppies and a 36 bow tank. What would be a good fish mates? Let me see. I want to make sure I'm not missing the first one. There you go. Have you ever used a Neo large CO2 diffuser? Yes. First 5 min, the stone popped off the acrylic. Oh, well, that sucks. So I do have the large Neo diffuser in my Fallen Forest tank, and mine hasn't popped off. That's interesting. So I would say one thing you might look at, they're a little more expensive, but I think Nylock G has one. Hold on, let me find you a link. But what I'm specifically thinking of is what we call atomic diffusers. These are what I typically use. I could have swore that like Nylock G had one that was really well priced. Give me like a half sec. I want to find you something. It's either that or it's like going to be F-Zone that makes one. Is this the one I'm looking at? Oh, that one's kind of expensive. Yeah, it's a little much. It probably has built-in check valve though, which is why. I'll give you a link just so you can see what it looks like. We'll start there. You can find some better price ones, but I will say that some of the slightly more expensive ones tend to be really, really well built. But here, I'm going to put this link in chat for you just so you can see the type of diffuser I'm talking about. This particular style that I'm linking, yes, that is an Amazon link. Yes, I am an Amazon affiliate. So that is a paid link. If you are to make a purchase through that link that I just gave you, I receive a small commission. So get that disclosure out of the way. FTC, please don't find me. I certainly cannot afford it right now. I couldn't afford it in the previous part when I was employed. But I hate those disclosures. You have to be so like, the disclosure requirements are so strict on us YouTubers, and then like, normal television, they're like, oh, you don't have to disclose the fact that they pay you hundreds of thousands of dollars to have you like hold a Coke can in that scene in your stupid show. Anyway, if you're having trouble with those like Neo style diffusers, this is a good option. It gives you really tiny bubbles. It doesn't need to be at a really high flow rate. I do my low and slow method using those all the time. But they're built like tanks, and they give very, very fine bubbles, which I really like. Now, that being said, I've had good luck with the Neo diffusers, but I've had several people mention that theirs don't last a super long period of time. So it might just be the company, because that's not something Aquarium Co-op makes. That's something they just carry, right? That's another brand. So I don't know like how deep down the well they went with product quality testing on that particular thing. I just tried it because I think I have like 2 of them, but I've only got 1 in use right now. One of which they sent me, just because it was like, they sent me a whole kit. I'm like, I'm going to test everything you sent me and talk about it. And then we'll give some long-term testing. We'll talk about it again and see how I really feel about it long-term. So yeah, bummer on that part. Let's get to the fish part. We're talking about 2 trios of guppies in a 36 bow planted tank. Good fish mates. Okay, so in general, right, guppies are a longfin fish. So we don't want to have something that's kind of nippy. So you don't want to have like Siamese algae eaters as they start getting big, because 1, they'll eat the fry, and 2, they start nipping at fins. You might try looking at something like any of your kind of like hill stream loach or any of those like sucker mouth type fish if you're looking for like a more maintenance oriented thing. But also snails and shrimp do great with guppies, right? So those are some options on the maintenance side of things. If you want something just to get along with the guppies and be something extra in that tank swimming around, some of your danios can be really great. So like celestial pearl danios or smaller danio, you could look at like the gold ring danio, which is a smaller version of the leopard danio. You could do, white clouds are great because white clouds can handle a big range of temperature. And if your particular guppies like it a little cooler, they don't like being super hot. Like my guppies are like that. They tend to do best in that like 74, 76 range, and not necessarily some of those higher 80s, like those really crazy imported Thai guppies will be, where they really like to be hot. White clouds can do great with them because they're super peaceful. They kind of do their things. They have a similar thing where like they have that little flash of color in one spot, but the guppies will definitely be the big pop of color in your tank. You could also look into, try to think of another good option, because the one thing you don't want is something that's super fast ripping around, because in general you don't want like high flow. So you don't want fish that want like high flow, right? Guppies don't like super high flow. I've done platies with guppies before, but platies can get kind of aggressive when it comes to food time, because they've got that big kind of like arrowhead body, right? And they can kind of bully your guppies a little bit, but it's usually not too bad. And about the last thing I could think of, other than like a pleco of some form, right, will do fine. Basically, you don't want something with a big mouth. Oh, pencilfish. Pencilfish would be another great option. They have a really small mouth. They also stay kind of top of water, but they're very, very peaceful fish. And they can get along really great with guppies because they have those teeny tiny mouths. You don't have to worry about them like fin nipping or anything like that. I would avoid things like some of your dwarf cichlids, just because they might start predating on your fry if you're trying to breed those fry out and have some good success with those guppies. And also avoid things like silver tip tetras. They can get fin nippy. Kochu tetras definitely will get fin nippy, so don't try those. But you might do well also with like neons or cardinals. They're pretty peaceful in the tetra family. I would not do rainbows, just because rainbows, as they start getting big, they might predate on fry, and also they're just such hogs of food that might cause issues with your guppies or stress. So yeah, hopefully that gives you a lot of options. There's a ton of stuff. Basically, just it depends on what you're trying to put. Like if you're looking for lower stuff, Cories do great with guppies because those guppies are going to take the high water. Cories are going to be down low. They're really peaceful. There's a ton of great species of cories you could keep with them. Some of the loaches will do okay. Like some of your smaller loaches, like dwarf chain loach, as an example, could do well. Some of your gobies can do well. My friend Alyssa keeps some of like the panda loaches, as an example, in with some of her fish. They do great together. There's tons of options you can look at. Basically, what I would focus on is smaller mouths, so that we're not going to worry about something predating on our fry, and something that doesn't need super fast flow or way different temperatures. Right? If we know that we're having success with our guppies at, say, 76 degrees, we're going to look for other fish that are small-mouthed and peaceful that likes that 76-degree water. Right? And I think you'll find success. There's so many options out there, so many crazy things you can do. Just trying to make sure that they're not fin nippy and they're not super, super active, because that might spook the guppies. That would be my advice. Sorry for missing your question for a while, Big D. Sometimes it doesn't highlight the name. If you're on like a cell phone, especially, it won't highlight the @Bentley, and that can make it hard for me to miss some stuff because I talk too long when I'm answering questions. That's really my problem, not yours. It's my fault. But I hope that helps. Oh man. And there was another question earlier I saw, just remembering it now, about trying to flower a Nubius. Okay, two things: extra micros. So your micronutrients, get a micronutrient specific one, and add extra of those, because what you're really looking for is boron. Boron helps with flowering and fruiting. And second is more red light. We typically see more flowers in spring and summer because that's when red light is more prevalent naturally. Think about those nice, beautiful orange and reds that we see in our sunsets and stuff like that. That red light's more prevalent. That encourages flowering and fruiting. So if you have a way to adjust your red light, add a little bit more, or curtail some of your other light away so you've got stronger red intensity in your lighting, that will help you with flowering and fruiting. Nano Aquarium guy earlier was talking about Japan clover, Japonica tripartita. That's correct. That's the one we're talking about. Or that's hydrocaudal tripartita. This shows you how far behind in chat I can get at times. All right, I might have missed some stuff. If I did miss stuff, I'll help you guys out. Bentley Pasco is in chat, but also you can do bentley.pasco@gmail.com. Might take me a while. I'm a little behind just because I've been doing a bunch of interview work and prep and stuff like that, but shoot me an email. Happy to help you, especially if you have a more complex problem. I'll do my best to help you out. Feel free to shoot me an email. Just like, hey, I'm dealing with this problem. Here's my tank parameters, or I'm thinking about this kind of plant. Here's my light, and this is what I'm dealing with. Any of those things. Just let me know, and I'll be happy to try and help you. Just understand that sometimes I get a little bit behind, so yeah. Blue-eyed Buddhist. Bentley, I have Hawaiian Moscows just like you. I'm thinking of breeding them with other blue Moscows and also blue Schubels. Everything in similar experiments. This is my plan in mastermind concoction. I'd be curious to see how your results are. I'd be a little worried about the Schubels because they're a little different in their genetics, right? But I don't think adding a high quality blue Moscow is necessarily a bad thing to get some diversity in the genetics. I am pretty lucky in that at least with my Hawaiians that I've seen that came from Luke Roebuck, to this day, years later, I think he passed away 10 years ago now, they still throw so well and so healthy. I get maybe 1 in 100 fish that has any kind of issue, where it's either off color or has some kind of health issue that I would be euthanizing or culling that fish. I really just move into a different tank and let them live out their lives on their own. But it's so infrequent. The genetics on the line are just so stable that I really haven't stressed about it. But if you're going down that route, one thing that's been done in the past with somebody who had that line used purple Moscows to breed in and bring that depth of blue to get it darker and more of like a true cobalty blue color. So if you're just looking at like some history there was some history of someone else using Roebuck's line and adding in purple Moscow to deepen the blue to get it darker. And I think I'm trying to remember who it was that there was somebody that specifically had that line on FishTube, and I can't remember on the top of my head. I think Chubby Guppy knows the person, but it wasn't Chubby Guppy specifically. He was selling them for a while, but yeah. I mean, you even got there. Danikin Aquatics had the Hawaiian blues for 4 years, never had to cull. It's so rare that you have to cull those fish. It's really incredible, to be honest, how stable the genetics on that line are. Okay, guys, we are really at the point where I need to shut it down and go do some dinner with my wife and all those kind of things. But I will try to. Let me see here. I'm going to speed answer 2 questions really fast. So first, Brian, any ideas on whether tiger teddies would do well, all right, with neons? I think so. My only concern would be the gallonage, right? If we're talking about tiger teddies, which is kind of a live bearer, a little easier to breed, if I remember correctly, I would be concerned about if you're trying to actively breed them as opposed to just keep them, getting them in a small tank like a 5.5 gallon, and then trying to add extra fish in there. So that would be my concern there. But I think you could do fine with those because the tiger teddies can handle, some tropical temperatures, and neons can handle cooler sides of tropical temperatures. They don't necessarily have to be in that like 78 to 80 kind of range. So I think you'd be okay. Where's the other one? Michael, advice on getting imported guppies to thrive on arrival. The biggest thing I would do is drip acclimate and know that they are kept way hotter when they're originally, before they come in, they're kept at a hotter temperature than most of us keep our guppies normally. So instead of keeping your guppies at like 76, you probably want to keep those guys at 80. I don't like imported guppies. I can't stand them. And it's not because they don't look amazing. It's because so many people struggle to get them to be healthy. They're so inbred at this point that they either, one, do not stay very true deep into their generations, or two, just have lots of health issues of just surviving that first generation. And I think it's less of a problem with some of the ones that are coming out of like Israel, just because of the way that they keep their fish, but especially some of the Thai guppies that have been coming in. I've seen so many horror stories of people that I know are really good with guppies, just having them basically like wilt away immediately when they bring them in all the time, and having very low success rates with them, which scares me a little bit because, I mean, they come in and they look amazing. There's so many incredible ones, right? All these like dragon, mosaic, Dumbo tail, all the like 8,000 words to describe what the guppy is that look incredible. But then it's like, cool. I, as a customer, was like, I like you, guppy importer man. I want to buy this guppy from you. And it comes in and like within a week it's dead because they're just so fragile. And I half the time I'm sitting there going like, I don't even know what I did wrong, right? I just hear so many of those stories that it really turns me off to imported guppies. So hardcore. It makes me just go like, not even remotely interested. But there are some good ones out there. I would say find a place like Dan's Fish that holds them and goes through a strict quarantine process before they sell them to you as a customer. Because you're more likely to get stronger guppies in places that do that than you are at like, hey, I've got a shipment coming in on this day, and then I'll be shipping your guppies to you a day later or whatever. Like, I would avoid those sellers at all costs. No matter how much better the prices may be, the chance of success just goes down so astronomically, it's not worth it to me. Personal advice there, Michael. Hope that helps some. I know it's not great. Probably not the answer you want, but yeah. And yeah, salt can help, but I would say if you're going to use salt to try and protect yourself, depending on what you're first understand what your make sure you understand the difference in the mineral content of the water they're in versus the mineral content in your water. But in general, I would say do like medicinal doses of salt. And what I mean by that is not a heavy medicinal, but more like a tablespoon per 10 gallons. And use, if you can, specifically a reef salt, because reef salt has a lot more extra mineral content to it. I wouldn't use standard rock salt. And that mineral content can really help. But yeah, I mean, Fish Folk has got a great point there. There is osmotic stress when you're dealing with a lot of these imports and things like that, and salt can be your best friend. Yeah. Okay. That's gonna cover us for tonight. Um, like I said, if you do have extra questions, feel free to email me, folks. Or next week, hopefully, I can not spend as much time babbling about nonsense. My brain will be back in fish mode next week, hopefully. But yeah, with that being said, guys, I just really want to thank you all for being here. Thank you so much for all of the absolutely wonderful and warm comments that you guys left on the video about my wife and her condition. Uh, just, yeah, thank you. I really appreciate all of you so much. Thank you so much for watching. And as always, stay awesome.